Mario has a long tradition of iconic boss fights. For a lot of us, Mario bosses were one of the first impressions of what a boss fight even meant. But iconic doesn't mean best. As the years and decades roll on, Mario bosses have started to feel a bit samey. That's not the worst thing in the world. Even if the fights are real basic, they're still a good introduction for new players. They can get them familiar with part of the design language of video games. But those fights had still lately seemed a little hollow. Then, along comes Super Mario Odyssey. I was fully prepared for its bosses to be more of the same, but they're not. The boss design in Super Mario Odyssey marks a real step up in how Nintendo approached their flagship series. Let's talk about Super Mario Odyssey's boss design through a few examples, and hear from the designers themselves about how they managed to make something fresh and unique while still making it recognizably Mario. Before we start, I want to talk about today's episode sponsor, Skillshare. Going into the new year, I wanted to stretch my creative muscles a little bit, and dive into some aspects of graphic design that I hadn't focused on before. I found an amazing class on Skillshare on logo type design that fit the bill perfectly. Jessica Hish, who has redesigned the logo types of a bunch of major companies, teaches the class, and the level of clarity that she teaches with is just astounding. Her class opened my eyes to a deeper appreciation of typography that I didn't have before, and I'm going to take that with me going forward. But Skillshare is not just for typography. It has thousands of courses on UX, animation, illustration, photography, productivity, and lots more that you can use to get your own personal epiphany for less than $10 per month with an annual subscription. The first 500 people to click the link in the description will get a 2-month free trial of premium membership so you can explore your creativity. So, Mario Odyssey. It follows the other mainline 3D Marios, and it borrows and builds off of those older sandbox-style games. They've doubled down on having a more coherent narrative. Bowser has taken Peach again for a forced wedding. He jets around with some sketchy wedding planners to steal precious artifacts and resources from a bunch of other kingdoms, and Mario has to follow behind, fix the worlds, and fight Bowser. The story is more integrated than a lot of the other games in the series, especially in its bosses. Mario 64's bosses were only there for gameplay purposes, with no real storytelling power whatsoever. Take this bomb and make it a big bomb. He's like king of the bombs. Take this boo and make it a big boo. We can call him Big Boo. Next week I'll tell you my plans for the Womp. I'm fired, aren't I? Sunshine's island setting was a little more coherent, and the game integrated some of its bosses into a conflict for each location. However, the series' boss approach regressed a little in Super Mario Galaxy. It had unique bosses, but they once again were more like cool-looking one-off encounters, and didn't tell much of a story between them all. Odyssey's bosses take Sunshine's approach and go a little further. Its major bosses are designed to have a sense of place and purpose to a greater degree than any of the other games in the series. Odyssey's bosses aren't put where they are by accident. They're chosen to work in each kingdom's style. Nearly every boss in Odyssey is either a part of or a consequence of Bowser's wedding plans, and they each fit well within their respective kingdoms. Let's look at the game's second major boss, Knucklotec in the Sand Kingdom. He was the first boss the design team had created. Character art lead Sho Murata said that Knucklotec would become the benchmark for subsequent boss designs. Knucklotec isn't just some mook that Bowser sent after Mario. He's a guardian deity of an ancient relic in an ice cavern underneath the Sand Kingdom. Bowser stole the relic for his wedding, exposing Knucklotec's icy head to the rest of the Sand Kingdom, which made the temperature drop. You know, it isn't a deep plot or anything, but they made an effort. Knucklotec is a mix of both familiar and unusual design conventions for Mario. While his core design of giant floating head and fists isn't exactly new ground for a Mario boss, his design aesthetic is. His Mesoamerican theme, his texture, the stop-motion-like animation, these are all very alien to Mario. The art team wanted players to feel like they'd stumbled into an unknown land upon meeting this character. Unusual aesthetic, familiar mechanics. Knucklotec feels like he belongs in the Sand Kingdom, and he interacts with it in a way that makes him feel placed there intentionally, not randomly. He's not just a boss for the sake of having a boss battle. For a game themed around travel and seeing what's out there in the world, bosses with a distinct place and an overarching purpose fit in so well. That doesn't mean the gameplay is an afterthought. The Knucklotec fight makes great use of the capture mechanic by allowing you to take over the boss's giant fist like a bullet bill, and finesse your way through his projectiles to make a big counterattack. It works great as a final test in that classic 4-step Mario level design approach. Introduce a key mechanic, and steadily build up challenges to teach players how to apply that mechanic. Knucklotec feels like a well-designed Mario boss with an untraditional spin, but Odyssey's supposed to be about seeing the world. Knucklotec is just the beginning. As you travel through the world, you fight different bosses. Each feels at home in their respective kingdoms too. Bowser needs flowers for the wedding bouquet? Well, there's a flower robot in the Steam Gardens that seems exactly where he should be. The wedding's fireworks display is supposed to be controlled by the Robo Brood, who you fight in a Japanese festival theme world. The extra details that the designers put into making these bosses feel like they belong adds a ton to the game's charm and memorability. They help make the game feel like a big cohesive adventure, instead of just a random series of levels, something that hasn't been emphasized in a mainline Mario game since Mario Sunshine. At roughly the halfway point, Mario travels to one of the game's most distinct and contrasting kingdoms, New Donk City. It's the most visually striking level of Odyssey, and it's a huge stylistic contrast to the rest of the game. It definitely doesn't feel like it fits with the Mario brand identity, but that's a big part of its appeal. New Donk City's boss is the Mechawiggler, and it's designed to be visually and mechanically distinct, just like the city. The Mechawiggler shows up at the top of New Donk City Hall, sucking away the city's power. Go get him. It draws from the classic Mario Wiggler design, but it's more than just one of those with an industrial theme. It's got the spherical segments, and the big red plug that kinda looks like a nose, but that's where the similarities end. The conceptual designs for the boss were a little closer to that classic Wiggler form, but the final design went further. They made it more realistic and bug-like, which in turn made the Mechawiggler look more unnerving and hostile. 5 ominous glowing eyes, 4 spider-like legs on each of the body segments instead of just 2 caterpillar legs in the standard Wiggler. Character artist Junpei Yamashita describes how the Mechawiggler seems to be made of a mishmash of discarded materials. These elements were added to enforce its depiction as a parasite absorbing the city's energy. It's one of the most monstrous designs of the series. Once you go and fight the thing, the fight mechanics are also very unusual compared to the rest of the Mario boss canon. It's this scrappy industrial monster caterpillar that you fight in a third-person shooter style in the middle of a dark and stormy city street as it crawls on the sides of buildings and walls. You fire at all of the glowing segments to stun it and open it up for a big assault. It'll attack by launching balls of electricity and charge at you through portals. The Mechawiggler is not an especially difficult fight, but stylistically it's very far from Mario tradition, and that's what makes it stand out. This is where the game starts to feel like the travel theme isn't just for show. The game's called Super Mario Odyssey. You're traveling through purpose-built worlds of strange and new experiences in the Mario universe. Mechawiggler drives home that you're getting far from home. But New Donk City is just a stop along the Odyssey. As Mario travels, some of the campaign's locations play around with the usual Mario level tropes. The Snow Kingdom's Shiveria seems like a typical snow level at first, then you fall into an underground den inspired by Scandinavian architecture, chock full of seal people and a surprising racing segment. The Luncheon Kingdom is full of pastel colors and low poly food. The color palette might throw you off, but this is Odyssey's take on the traditional Mario Fire level. According to Rikudo Yoshida, this kingdom was actually designed to show the breadth of this game's design, acting as a land in direct contrast to the photorealistic Metro Kingdom. But the biggest contrast is in one of the last stages of the campaign, the Ruin Kingdom. It's not a full stage. Instead, it's a short path to fight the least Mario-looking boss in the entire series, the Ruined Dragon. The dark and drab, hopeless world is about as far from Mario tradition as you could possibly get, and you're gonna fight a boss to match. Look at him. That ain't Yoshi. There's almost no bridge to get you ready for the sudden stylistic and mechanical jump that happens when you arrive at the Ruin Kingdom. Before, in New Donk City, there was at least a strong undercurrent of Donkey Kong themed stuff, girders, posters, Pauline herself, that makes it feel a bit more Mario-y. Sho Murata says, this stage creates a sudden visual shift in the second half of the game, so it was purposely constructed to be the most out of place among the kingdoms. Instead of designing our own original dragon from scratch, we went for as stereotypical a design as we could manage. The dragon's visual design had to work both stylistically and mechanically. Since you have to climb on top of his head to reveal his weak spot, the art team had to make his head shape both look like a dragon from a distance and look climbable up close. They came up with a rigid stare-like design for his jaws. The art direction in the Ruined Kingdom is impressive. The desaturated purples and grays in the decayed ruins and the stormy cloudscape with the moon peeking out creates an incredible atmosphere for the battle. Ironically, part of the tone shift in this level comes from how the bosses fought. After an entire game of using the capture mechanic, you suddenly don't. You fight them in a much more traditional Mario boss style. The unusual patterns of the dragon's lightning projectiles and shockwaves are fun to avoid. It gets even more intense in his post-game rematch where there are crazier lightning patterns and an ice floor. By avoiding the usual Mario theme, they help make the endgame feel like Mario is very far from home. And then Mario gets to the end of his Odyssey, as far away from home as possible. The moon. The Moon Kingdom's motif is clearly space, but not the dazzling space that appeared in Super Mario Galaxy. Instead, we plan to stage set in the dark vastness of a more realistic version of space. We emphasize the isolation one would feel in the farthest reaches of the world and aim to make the entire region symbolize a wedding hall. The moon is the end of Mario's journey, the endpoint of the narrative the game has been telling, and in the lonely wedding chapel and the game's last sequence, you get to play the logical conclusion of the gameplay as well. The boss itself might not be anything crazy compared to the Ruined Dragon or even the Robo Brood, but the end sequence that follows is. You know what I'm talking about. Or if you don't, go play the game. It's worth seeing for yourself. Kudos to the designers at Nintendo for making a location and a finale that put the perfect cap on the story. Mario Odyssey is extremely well put together. It's thematically consistent, delivers a great sense of place in each of its kingdoms, and pushes the series' boss design to new heights. Nintendo's attention to detail makes Mario Odyssey a trip worth taking.